This video will show you how to make the Peekaboo 2 pattern. Okay, before I start talking about all the different supplies and get going with the pattern, I just wanted to mention the size of the pieces of fabric, etc. That's a question people always have. I didn't originally put that information in my videos because I use a ball that's a little bit smaller than what people typically use. I think the 3-inch ball is just a little too big. I like the 2.5-inch smooth styrofoam ball, so that's what comes in my kits, and those ornaments that I make are that size. That said, my pieces of rectangular fabric are a little bit of a different size as well. So if you're using a 3-inch ball, these measurements aren't going to help you because you're going to need a little bit bigger of a piece of fabric. But anyway, for my kits and the balls, ornaments that I make, the ball is 2.5 inches. The rectangular pieces of fabric are 2.5 inches by 1.5 inches. And for this pattern, the picture fabric that goes on each side is a 2.5-inch square. Hopefully that helps. For the Peekaboo 2 pattern, you're going to need two 2.5-inch squares with your picture fabric. You're going to need 16 rectangles of accent fabric, 16 rectangles of your main fabric, and a matching 2.5-inch by 10-inch strip for the band that goes around the ball, ribbon for your bow, a smooth styrofoam ball, about 180 satin pins, some good scissors, a soft measuring tape, a decorative pin, a ruler, and a metal thimble. Before we add any fabric to our ball, we need to prep it by making these lines. This is one of the ways we keep all the layers straight and both sides symmetrical. The smooth styrofoam ball that comes with your kit has a hole on one pole and a demarcation on the other. I'm going to color in that demarcation just to make it easier to see on the video. The ball also will have a raised equator line that you can see I colored in there too, so you can see it. Take a pin and place it anywhere you like on that equator line. Push it in the ball just about halfway so it's sticking up. And then position your ball so that the hole is left to the pin. That's where we're going to make our line. Take your soft measuring tape, put it halfway up through that hole horizontally, and push a pin right through the tape to hold it there. Now you're going to run that tape horizontally under the pin that you put on the equator line, and then pin that measuring tape about halfway up through the demarcation on the other side. Now your tape measure makes a nice horizontal edge that we can draw our line on. So use your pen, make a line right along the top edge of that measuring tape. You take the pins out, half your ball will be finished, and then we do the same thing on the other side. To start, we're going to take one of your pieces of picture fabric, fold it in half, and press along the crease, and then fold it in half again and press the creases so that when you open it up, you'll be able to clearly see where the center of your 2.5-inch square is by where these folds intersect. You're going to take a pin, you're going to poke it right in the center there between those two folds. And then we're going to place that fabric on your ball with the pin going straight in where your two lines on the ball intersect. So the folds of your fabric should line up with the lines that you drew on your ball when you were prepping it. And we're going to take a couple of pins and we're going to pin down the square of fabric right where those lines are. So you'll use 4 pins for that. Now you can see how each side where you pinned it, the fold is lined up with the lines on your ball. Next, we're going to pin down the corners of your fabric. The pin and the corner of your fabric should be in the center between the lines on your ball. That's how you know that everything is staying straight. Once you have those pins in, you can check to see that everything is lined up. Your pins on the corners are between the lines on your balls, and the folds of the fabric match the lines on the ball. Your accent fabric on the Peekaboo 2 pattern is going to be placed with the triangle point 3/4 of an inch from that center point where the pin is on the one side of your ball. You're going to take a rectangle of fabric, hold it horizontally, and fold the top down about 1/4 inch. Then you're going to fold it in half like a book, press the creases, and place a pin about 1/8 of an inch from the top of that rectangle. Then you're going to find 3/4 of an inch down the folded line on your picture fabric, 3/4 of an inch from that center pin. You're going to place the rectangle pin right on that line. You're going to fold down the right side to the center crease, fold down the left side to the center crease, overlap them just slightly, and place a pin at the bottom between all those fabrics to hold the bottom of the triangle together. Now you're going to do the same thing on the other side. You're going to find the center, put your measuring tape on the crease, and you're going to put the point of that next rectangle right in the spot 3/4 of an inch from the center pin. Okay, now that you have a top and bottom triangle, we're going to do the same thing on the left and right side of the picture. Okay, now it's time to smooth down the picture a little bit. We're going to do this by lifting up one side of one of those triangles, smoothing down the fabric close to the center crease of that triangle, and pressing a pin down in that fabric so that it holds it tight underneath of the triangle. Then you can pin down a corner of the triangle and it hides those wrinkles under there. You do the same thing on the other side, lift up a flap, smooth out the fabric underneath there close to the center of the triangle, and take a pin and pin down that picture fabric so that it is hidden underneath of the triangle and the picture is all nice and smooth. Use a pin to pin down the corner of your triangle. Now that one's all nice and smooth under there. You're going to do the same thing under the other 3 triangles. Now that we got the first 4 pieces smoothed and secured, it's time for pieces 5 through 8. They're going to go in these empty spaces between the other triangles. The same thing, we're going to use the smooth measuring tape, and the point of the triangles is going to be 3/4 of an inch from the center pin. Take your fabric in the same way. We're going to fold the top down, fold it in half like a book, press the creases, use a pin about 1/8 of an inch from the top center of the rectangle, Use our measuring tape to find 3/4 of an inch from the center. Make sure that pin is between the other two triangles you've got there, and use the same techniques as before. We're going to add pieces 5 through 8. Make sure that your center crease is lining up with the lines on the ball so everything stays straight. Okay, now we have all of our accent pieces attached. We're going to pin down the corners of each triangle, 1 pin per corner, so that all of our accent pieces are secured and smooth and flat on the ball. Now that all 8 pieces are attached, we can check and see that all of the center lines of the triangles are lining up symmetrical on the ball. Take that pin out from the center, and we're going to get started on the other side. Okay, now it's time for side 2. We're going to be using the same techniques as the other side. Take your picture fabric, fold it in half, and then fold it in half again, and press on those creases real good so that you'll easily be able to see the folds where they intersect and find the center of your fabric. Place your pin there and attach it to your ball right where your lines intersect. Leave that pin sticking up so you can use it to measure. Find where the crease is lined up with your line on the ball and attach your fabric right there on the line on all 4 sides, right in the center on the crease line on all 4 sides. Okay, now just like the other side, we're gonna pin down the corners of that fabric. Make sure they line up with the lines on your ball, and just pin each corner down, all 4 corners. Now for pieces 1 through 4, on side 2, you're going to use your rectangle, fold it like usual, and again, just like the other side, you're going to place the point of that triangle 3/4 of an inch from the center pin on this side of your ornament. Now it's time to smooth that picture out again. So what we're going to do is lift one flap of the triangle, smooth out the picture fabric close to the center seam of that triangle, place a pin right there so that it can be hidden, and hold down those folds of the picture fabric, and then smooth the triangle flap back over top of the picture fabric and secure it to the ball at the corner of the triangle. Do that for all the flaps all the way around the second side of your ball, so your picture will be nice and smooth. Okay, now we've got pieces 1 through 4, all nice and smooth and secure. Your picture fabric is all smooth. It's time for pieces 5 through 8. Again, we're going to use the same technique for folding these rectangles, and you're going to place the point of each triangle 3/4 of an inch from the center pin on this side of the ball, and you're going to want to make sure that that triangle point is centered between your other triangle points on the ball, just to make sure everything is lined up and nice and straight. Do that for pieces 5 through 8. Okay, those triangles are attached. It's time to secure the corners down. 1 pin per corner. Just make sure your triangle fabrics are smoothed down on the ball and place a pin in each corner of the triangles all the way around side 2. Okay, now you can take out that pin. We don't need it anymore. And you've got your accent fabric on both sides. You can check to see that all of your center triangle lines are lining up on both sides. And we're going to get ready for the next layer of fabric. All right, now it's time for your main fabric. We're going to go back to side 1, and you're going to need 8 pieces of that main fabric. This time you're not going to have to measure because the points of your triangles are going to go right here in between your accent triangles. So you take a piece of that main fabric, fold it just like you did the other ones, the top down about 1/4 inch, and then fold it in half like a book. Press those seams and place that pin right there at the center seam, 1/8 of an inch from the top. And then the point of that triangle goes right there on the white fabric, but right there at the crease where the 2 green triangles meet. You're going to fold down the sides just like always. Make sure it's right there in the middle. Make sure it lines up with the crease on the other side, and secure it down there at the center of the triangle. So you're going to do the same thing for all 4 pieces, the first 4 pieces of your main fabric on side 1. Once you have those 4 pieces attached, then you just need to secure the corners of each triangle. Okay, so now instead of putting the other 4 pieces on side 1, we're actually going to flip the ornament over and do pieces 1 through 4 on side 2. There's a reason for this. It has to do with the bulk of the fabric around the circumference of the ball. I found that it's a lot better to do pieces 1 through 4 on the first side and 1 through 4 on the second side before you add the rest of the fabric. So we're going to just do the same thing as before. Make sure it lines up with the other side, and you're gonna notice that I don't necessarily put the pin all the way down at the bottom, kind of putting it a little bit more, about 1/4 of an inch up from the bottom of the triangle. This is because I want those pins to stay right in the center around the circumference of the ball. And we're going to be trimming that fabric at the bottom a little bit before we add the band. And you'll see what I mean in just a few minutes when we get to that part. Okay, now I got those first 4 pieces attached there. Of course, we're going to need to pin down the corners. Again, I'm trying to keep the pins down the center of the circumference of the ball, so you will see that I won't always put the pin right at the corner of the triangle. I might put it a little bit closer to the circumference of the ball, just to kind of keep those pins more down the center. And then we'll be trimming the fabric later, so that we can have a nice symmetrical ball. Okay, now we have pieces 1, 2, 3, 4 on one side, and 1, 2, 3, 4 on the other side. Now it's going to be time to do pieces 5 through 8 on both sides. Okay, so pieces 5 through 8 on side 1 are going to go here, 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 and here, in between the first 4 we placed on there. Again, we're going to use the same technique for folding the rectangles, and you're going to place the point of each triangle right where the accent triangles meet. Remember to make sure the center of your triangles line up with the other side of your ball. Once pieces 5 through 8 are attached, you're going to secure the corners as usual with a pin right at the corner of each triangle, so that those are flat and smooth and secure all the way around that side of your ball. Okay, you're ready for side 2, main fabric pieces 5 through 8. Same techniques. You know what you're doing now. You're going to put pieces 5 through 8 in between the other red triangles on this side that you've already pinned down. And you're going to put the points right there where the green triangles meet. And you're going to make sure everything is lined up and straight and symmetrical in between. And based on the other side, make sure that all those lines line up with each other so that they're nice and symmetrical. Wonderful. Now we're going to secure the corners again. Now remember, I want that line of pins to go as much down the center of the circumference as possible, and that will mean that my pins are not always going to be right at the corner tip of the triangle. So I'm going to be aware of where the other line of pins are, and probably putting it about 1/4 of an inch, maybe a little more, from the tip of each triangle so that those pins line up down the circumference. Okay, we have all those pieces on there. As you can see, we have some extra fabric that we need to trim. So we're just gonna make sure everything is secure, and then you're gonna take your scissors and you're just gonna trim that fabric along the outside of where you put your pins. Okay, so we're ready to snip this extra fabric here. You need some nice sharp fabric scissors and just go around the outside. Don't worry, this is all going to be covered up with the band, but you just want to snip that extra fabric along the outside of where you have your pins. So just slip the edge of your scissors underneath of there and snip the excess fabric. Okay, now it's nice and smooth there around the edge. Got that excess fabric snipped, and we're about to add the band. Okay, take your matching strip of fabric that you have for the band and just fold it in thirds lengthwise. Make sure you put a nice crease there. Some people like to iron that to make it a little bit easier. I don't usually need to, but you can if you want to. We're gonna line this up right where we want the top of the ornament to be. You're gonna use a couple of pins to secure that right there. Just make sure it's right in the center on the circumference of your ball, covering up the pins that you have there that are holding your triangles in place at the top of your ornament. And then we're going to keep it folded and snugly wrap it around the circumference of the ball, covering up all those pins that we placed at the bottom of our triangles till we get around to the top again. And then you're gonna pin it again in place there at the top. Once you get that pinned in place, you're going to take your scissors again and you're just going to trim the excess band fabric right there. Now you have your band and you're ready to add the bow. For this ornament, we're going to make a 3-layer bow. To do that, you need 3 20-inch long ribbons, a decorative pin, and a few satin pins. First, we're going to take the widest ribbon. I have a 5/8 ribbon for the 3rd layer, the bottom layer. It's best to do this layer separately from the other 2 so that it can be more secure in the ornament. I'll show you how to do that. First, you need to take your ribbon and place a satin pin about a 1/2 inch from the end of that ribbon. Use a ruler to measure from the satin pin about 2.5 inches out. Place the pin through at the 2.5 inch mark. Bring that ribbon around and you will have your first loop. Now we're going to make a loop opposite that one, 2.5 inches out. Place the pin through. Now you have 2 loops. You're going to make these loops back and forth like a fan on this satin pin until you have 6 to 8 loops, 3 or 4 on each side. Once you get your 6 to 8 loops, you can fan out your loops on the pin so it looks pretty. And then we're going to place it in the center at the top of our ornament. Same place where we attached the band at the top. You put it right in the middle of that satin ribbon. Okay, the next thing we want to do is add a little security to that 3rd layer. We just want to make sure it's nice and snug and there's no chances of it coming out when you're hanging it or holding the ornament and putting it on the tree year after year. So we're just going to add a few satin pins down at the bottom, close to the center, hiding under the loops here, just for some added security. Okay, we're going to do the top layer of the bow now. You want your narrow ribbon. You need an angled tip on it. Take your decorative pin and place it near the end of that ribbon. Next, you're going to measure from the pin head about 5 inches. This will form your loop for the hanger. Measure out 5 inches, stick the decorative pin back in at the 5-inch mark, and now you have your hanger. Now you want to measure from the pin head about 2 inches. Make a 2-inch loop by placing the pin through the ribbon at the 2-inch mark. We're going to use the same method that you used for the bottom layer of the bow. The only difference is that you're only doing 2-inch loops this time instead of 2.5 inches. So make about 6 loops, 3 on each side, about 2 inches long. Now that we have our 6 loops for layer number 1, just want to trim the excess ribbon. And now we're going to use this red ribbon to make the second layer. We want an angled tip on the ribbon, just looks prettier. Place that decorative pin through about a 1/2 inch from the end of that ribbon, and then measure out 2 inches from the pin head to form the loops, just like you did for the first layer. You're going to make about 6 loops, 2 inches long for layer number 2. Okay, now that you have your loops finished, just snip the excess ribbon, and now you can fan out your loops on the pin to make it look pretty. Then you pin that right on top of your 3rd layer in the middle at the top of your ornament. Just go straight through the 3rd layer, and you have your 3-layer bow on top of your beautiful quilted ornament. Thanks for watching.